Again, thank you to Professor Howell and Professor Villa-Lizancos and Professor Worry and Martinez and Simsek for taking time out of their day today to visit with us. So really quick, the agenda, we're going to quickly run through this presentation, then we're going to flip over to a faculty panel. We're going to talk a little bit more and get our Purdue engineering faculty members insight about how to network and how to really meet faculty and what they look for when talking with students, and how you guys can all be competitive, whether you're applying to summer research programs, because about a quarter of the group are younger students, or applying to graduate school, because we know the majority of you guys are seniors on the line today. So then what we'll do is we'll actually break out into breakout rooms. We're going to do 2 rounds of breakout rooms. First round is going to be with faculty to debrief and talk a little bit more. So just certainly to go around and introduce yourself, ask some more questions. Round 8, I'll close those rooms and bring y'all back. We'll say thank you to our faculty members that have joined us, and then we'll break out again kind of in your circles for round 2 of breakout rooms. And then we'll just wrap up with some assignments and make sure we're all on the same page going into November. So, and again, for our breakout rooms, I'll make it so that you can join the break. Anyone can join and move yourself to a breakout room. So at the very bottom of your screen, you'll be able to hit that breakout room button and move into those rooms. And before I really jump in to the panel, I want to just go over really quick kind of the art of asking good questions. And I will email this to you guys as well, but I wanted to make sure we're on the same page and to give you some tips and tricks that I learned over the course of my PhD, and Janet added some of these that she added in over the course of her PhD. So again, we're encouraging you guys as undergrads to lean in, be curious, don't be afraid to ask those questions. It's always good if you want to learn more to avoid asking those yes or no questions. And sometimes you get an answer, whether it's this conversation here or another conversation when you're talking about research, where you might not completely understand what someone's asking you. Try to pinpoint, exactly what you might not be understanding, and dig a little deeper into that and ask to try to go in depth with that. And again, if something is unclear, don't hesitate to clarify or reconfirm you understood kind of where they're coming from, what they're sharing, and certainly don't hesitate to kind of ask different questions to learn about different perspectives. And you really want to start thinking about questions kind of in the broader sense, right? What is the implications? What are the context of a specific research area? Starting to think about what's next, right? I think a lot of faculty, when you talk to them, they'll say, I'm currently working on this, but they're always thinking about that next step too, and what their next, what their next grant is, what their next paper is. So that's certainly something that you can always ask about. And some good ways to ask some scientific questions, right, is to start to think about, how does blank affect blank? What is the effect of something on something, and different relationships between something that someone is studying. So just wanted to quickly throw those out there, and I will email this out as well. But don't be afraid to ask good questions. We want to encourage you all to ask questions. And then finally, we're going to jump over to the panel discussion of really how to network and meet with faculty. And specifically, we're going to look at, you're going to ask, what our faculty members look for. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to quickly kind of flip over to our faculty members, and maybe before we jump into this panel, would you like to quickly introduce yourself and maybe how long you've been at Purdue, and a sentence. We're going to keep it to a sentence about your research. So maybe we'll start with Professor Martinez, and then we'll go to Professor Worry, and then we'll jump over to Professor Howell.
Hi there, this is Ramses Martinez. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Biomedical Engineering and Industrial Engineering. My work focuses on the manufacturing of wearable devices, smart stickers, and smart bandages that are supposed to help in the improving current healthcare delivery systems.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Janelle Wary. I'm an associate professor in materials engineering. I've been here at Purdue for about 5 years, and my research focuses on how materials behave under irradiation environments, mechanical behavior and microstructure, and functionality and performance of materials.
And Professor Howell, feel free to unmute yourself.
Sure. So I'm Professor Howell. I'm a professor in aeronautics and astronautics and engineering. I've been here a long time, probably longer than anyone else on this call. I'm in aeronautics and astronautics, and what I focus on is if you guys wanted to explore the solar system, how would you do it? How would you get where you're going, and how would you sort of take a spacecraft and make sure that it can reach its destination and then stay there and accomplish whatever the scientific objectives are.
Excellent. Thank you. So now we'll flip over to Professor Simsek and then Professor Vilay-Lysankos.
Hello, I am in Purdue University in very short time. Just 2 months ago I started. However, I have a degree from Purdue. I have a master's degree from Purdue. I'm a faculty in agricultural and biological engineering department. My research area is water and wastewater treatment because I'm an environmental engineer actually. I use bacteria and algae to treat wastewaters, and that's it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Miriam Vilay-Lysankos. I am professor in, I'm assistant professor in civil engineering materials area, and my research is focused on creating new sustainable construction materials with the special abilities such as sequestrating CO2 or having some self-cleaning or other special properties. So ultra high performance materials with the focus on sustainability.
Excellent. So I think we're going to lightning round this next question. I would, love for each of you to share a little bit about maybe how you connect with undergraduate researchers and or graduate student researchers. And so by connect, maybe we'll do a quick show of hands that when you're looking for an undergrad, do you typically get emails from them? And do you respond to those emails? Maybe yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. It's questionable.
I will say yes, but it will be better if they introduce themselves in person, if possible. That is more effective because at the end of the day, professors receive many emails every day. So it might happen that it will end up in spam or whatever. So if you have the chance to introduce yourself in person, it's much effective, I think, in general, just not for me.
Also, particularly for undergrad researchers, we are looking for commitment. We don't like when a student is not interested in taking research credits for working in our lab, because our previous experience says that typically students get very excited at the beginning of the course, but as soon as the midterms appear, this urge for research disappears just because they get overwhelmed with other academic tasks. So you're going to find that faculty members will be much more interested in you if you mention that you want to get research credit for your work, that you want to be made accountable, which is basically the value of those research credits, and that you're even interested in getting research credits during 2 consecutive semesters. Consider that you're going to to be mentored by not only your academic advisor, but also the PhD students working in that group. So those students do not want to feel like they are wasting time, because every single semester they will have to be training a new undergrad. If they feel like you're going to be there for like the constitution of a full project, during 2 semesters, that will be something that will make them feel like you are one of them.
Yeah, and I very quickly want to say that the majority of our students on the call today are actually not Purdue undergrads. So it's a kind of a fun position to be in, especially when thinking about contacting and making connections with faculty members that they might not be on campus. So, if they're interested in research, then how exactly do they do that? So how do they make those connections? And so I guess thank you so much for sharing some of that feedback. And I guess does anyone else have any preference for like how you prefer to be contacted by prospective undergrads for maybe summer research or current or graduate undergrads who are thinking about applying to graduate school?
So I get contacted by a lot of students every year from all different levels, both here at Purdue and elsewhere. And one of the pieces of information I can offer is before you contact a professor, it's worthwhile to explore a little bit, learn something about them so that you can really articulate why you're interested in participating in their sort of research. We all get a lot of these, blast emails that it's an email that basically says, hey, all of you professors, anybody got a spot in your lab for me? And that's not going to win the day.
One thing to mention is that definitely these emails out of the blue do not get to work, and usually we receive them when we have another pile of emails we have not addressed yet. So they really like it's very unlikely, like if you like just get that reply like that, it's again very unlikely. I do value a lot the opinion of my students. So if you're a student and you talk to one of my students and get and my student tells me that you're really interested in our research and that you have the skills necessary to do well at my lab, that will be more than enough for me to probably give you an opportunity.
So for that, you mean one of your graduate students? So if one of
That's correct.
Like an undergrad reaches out to one of your graduate students and kind of gets
also,
on your radar.
Prospective graduate students have joined my lab in a similar way.
Yeah, I would agree with what Professor Martinez just said there about reaching out to current students in my group. I would also encourage those of you who are not Purdue students, if you cannot meet us in person, you probably have professors at your own university that you interact with, and they might have connections with other faculty, maybe not just at Purdue, but elsewhere, right? Who people they just know from conferences or from grad school or whatever, who may be able to help you build connections. And if another faculty member comes to me, or a colleague from another university comes to me and says, I have this undergrad who's really interested in what you're doing, I will definitely hire that student for summer or even as a graduate student.
Yeah, I think resume is also important. Some students looking for just a job, and I saw some undergrad students always they are watching the clock. They just want to fill the time, or other group wants to learn from that research. So because of that, I usually look at the CVs. Whoever fit, which student's background is fit, I try to select that student.
Excellent. Thank you guys for sharing that. So I think another quick question that we certainly want to discuss, GradTrack program is really focused on preparing this awesome group of undergrads for graduate school in the future. And one question that I think a lot of students have is, how what is the application process like? And, and what is that from the faculty point of view and I know this will vary from school to school, but I guess, can you guys describe how you're involved in the admissions process in your particular discipline? If you are, you might not be, and that's okay.
So I would say that it depends a lot on the case of the student. For example, I had the opportunity to work with an undergrad who actually got a fellowship to, was so interested with working at my lab that got a fellowship, worked with us for 4 months, and then he finishes his degree. So I was very interested in recruiting this student. So I basically put him in contact with the administration people at Purdue. He ran all the paperwork, and there's something for you to know. There is always a page whenever the students that pass the threshold, basically, where all the faculty go there, particularly if, the faculty working in manufacturing or the people doing material science, we get to review that pool of students. So if we write over there, I would like this student to get to Purdue and I will actually pay for him, your chances of getting in are really close to 100%. Nobody's going to oppose to that unless your CV is clamorously terrible, but that never happens. So that is a good approach. So again, if you get the interest of your faculty member, it's quite straightforward.
Yeah, and I think it is very important, at least in my field, that you have to make sure you are applying to the right area. For example, in some cases, some students apply to, I don't know, one different area that is not my area, but then they list me as first choices of advisor. This will not work because I may even not see that application. For example, in civil, we receive only the applications of the students that apply to our area. For example, my area is materials. So if you apply to structures or if you apply to other areas, most likely I will not even see your application. So it is important, that your application in terms of area and professor that you want to work with matches. If not, it will be very unlikely that someone will really understand what you want to do, right? Because if you want to work with me that I am doing materials, but you apply for transportation, the professors who review it, that will be transportation, will say, well, this person wants to do materials. So then it will be very difficult to get a match, right? So that's very important to check that. So it depends a lot. In my school, every area just review the applications of the area that you apply for.
Yeah, actually, this is a very important point, I think. Let me give an example from my area. In environmental engineering, there are 4 or 5 different departments available that works in this area, in the campus. Civil engineering, agronomy, biological engineering, and more. If they just look at civil engineering webpage, they will just see those professors. So students must search professors, not department actually. Just recently, I found a professor in mechanical engineering that works in my area, work in bacteria. Can you imagine? In mechanical engineering, somebody will work on bacteria biofilm. So because of that, they should look at many web pages. They should look at the professors. If that professor works in the area that they want to do master or PhD, then they should communicate that professor. When they apply to the Purdue, they should tell, hey, send my application to agronomy, to plant science, to civil engineering. I think they can choose 3, I don't know. They should send multiple places.
I think you're probably also getting a sense that in every single department, there is a review type committee, a subset of the professors look over the applications. And sometimes, like in our school, it's by area. They also then look them over, and if there are any that they think a particular faculty member should look at, they pass those forward. However, in doing so, not only is it a matter of the other faculty here have identify that you can list some faculty, and those are important. At least in our school, actually the essay that you write is also pretty key thing on what you're interested in doing. And so the first level of review will also read those essays pretty clearly and try to identify what you want. Because sometimes we see one and actually in the essay, it appears as though the student doesn't really know what they want to focus on. They mention a lot of different areas, and they're not likely to get passed on to the next level because there's no focus in what they're interested in doing. So you might want to take more time on that essay than you would have imagined, at least for applications to our school.
And so across the board, right, it's sounding like you want to make sure all of your application aligns, right? And it all hangs together, I like to say, right? Where not only is that research area, but the faculty members are in that research area. You're talking about that in your statement of purpose. All that is really important for you guys who are seniors who are currently applying. So now I think I'll flip. We'll do one more question to kind of roundtable. And then I'll drop some questions in the chat, and we can break off into breakout rooms as well to have a little more in-depth kind of roundtable so the students can ask some more questions as well. So, I think really kind of flipping back to the title of this panel. So, what exactly do you as faculty look for in future summer researchers or future graduate students? What are some of the helpful traits or the best characteristics that you look for, or maybe what that you've already seen in some really successful graduate students and summer researchers? Whoever wants to start can jump on that.
I will. So 2 things will make you sign for a prospective faculty member. I would say proactivity, and the other one is adaptability. So we faculty members have a way of doing things that might not be the best, but it's our way. And we are not happy to change it. So that means that you will have to be flexible and understand that we have our little ways. And, the faster you embrace them, the easier you will be able to predict our actions and even to predict the feedback we are going to give you on your figures, graph, and so forth. So also, be proactive. That means if you don't know very well how to write the introduction of your paper, just read the papers that were written by your advisor before and get a hint of the structure. And you will get to see a little bit like how the style looks like, and then you will be able to just navigate through. Again, if you don't know if you should purchase something or not, if it is, you should always contact your advisor if you have a question that is basically can be addressed with a yes or no very fast. However, for all the other things that basically you don't know how to do, there are plenty of people in the campus and other graduate students that have been probably hitting that stone before. So ask them and be able to make sure that you attend the next meeting with as many things as accomplished as possible, even though if you require maybe to ask people from other groups or other people in general. So again, be proactive, be flexible.
So for me, the main thing is the attitude, just the feeling. If I have the feeling that that person really wants to learn and, is really motivated, that's the most important thing, positivity and really, I don't know how to explain that. I mean, but when someone really wants to work and really wants to learn, this is something that professors can feel. And for me, that's the most important thing. I mean, I am aware that you will not know about what I am doing. I am aware that, I am the one who has to teach you and help you to also learn by yourself. So for me, the most important thing is that, I mean, let's say the way that the people interact with each other, being a person who is positive, hard work person, and a person that really wants to learn, and it is respectful with the rest of the students. That's very important too for me.
That's exactly the same as how I hire students, Marianne. as long as you are easy to get along with, you're teachable and coachable. And I also, it sounds kind of silly, but be professional, right? So, I get a lot of these sort of emails that are just very unprofessional, or, if I don't respond by the next day, they're nagging me, multiple times in a row if I haven't responded, and that's not going to get me to respond any faster, So basically a student that I take in my group is always going to be a representation of me in the rest of their career, right? So I want to make sure that it's somebody who has a good attitude, who's easy to get along with, and is going to represent me and Purdue well, in the professional setting once they graduate, right? So that's how I tend to hire students.
I think that professional attitude is really, really important. It's also true that when I look at an application, I'm looking for evidence. This is consistent with what the others said. I'm looking for evidence that the individual is just naturally curious. And that makes a big difference. True, they won't know all the details of what we're doing, but if they're naturally curious, that will really, make a big difference in how they approach the work. For anybody who is a current Purdue student, I also look for that. For example, in the students who are in my classes who may want to eventually go to graduate school, how they approach that class will also tell me, one, how naturally curious they are, and how sincerely they really want to do this. So I think those are the kinds of things. And you could look at your own application and say, what evidence is there in that application for how you're going to approach, future problems.
For me, selecting master students is a little tricky because they don't have enough scientific background, just they graduate from BS. But for PhD, I definitely look at their master's study, if they published what they studied. If I get email, if I want to hire a student, then I pay attention to emails. Whatever comes, I look the email, look at the CVs. If interested any student, I ask him, her to send me his transcript. Then I like to look at their transcript, which classes they took, because sometimes from different countries we are getting email and we don't know what is their background. Especially civil engineering is very multidisciplinary major. If whoever took more classes in my area, then I contact with those students.
Excellent. Thank you. And so, in terms of what faculty look for, it can range, right? But it seems like all the faculty members on the panel certainly described that they want hardworking, motivated students who really put their best foot forward and ask good questions, right? So we started with asking good questions on the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to flip over. So right now, we're going to break out into breakout rooms. And dropping a couple of the questions that certainly you guys can discuss in the breakout rooms. I'm putting them in the chat. There's some questions we've already covered. You do not have to go through all of them. If any of the undergrads in the room, if you guys want to ask other questions, certainly do that. Each room will also have a couple of our GradTrack graduate student mentees. So our graduate students feel free to help kind of move the conversation along if needed. I will open up those rooms. Are there any questions before about logistics before we move into breakout rooms? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions about.
Do we have 5 rooms for 5 faculty members?
We do. Yep. So I will open these rooms, and there's actually it's called round 1 rooms, and so each room. I'm opening them now, actually. You'll be able to see that the breakout rooms actually have the faculty member's last name. So you should be able to move directly into the room that has your last name. And then we also have the circle numbers. So if you're a part of a specific circle, feel free to slide yourself on over as well.